Have you ever noticed that previous Minecraft updates felt more impactful or full? As in, every time a new update was introduced, no matter how big or small a change was, it always had an impact when playing the game? Well, I'm here to talk about that, since up until about now, Minecraft's updates have featured additions of varying sizes that often have stagnant changes, bringing little to no depth towards the experience of the game. So, to start, what makes a Minecraft update impactful? Is it big additions or overhauls like the Ender Dragon or the Nether update, or new blocks like Netherrack and Deep Slave? Well, even though what's seen as good or impactful is subjective, one repeating trait that I've seen that makes each of these impactful is visibility. And to understand what that means, let's take a look at an example with one of the simplest items in the game: boats. Boats are a simple vehicle that you can craft with 5 wood planks to traverse large bodies of water at speeds faster than swimming. And while their use is temporary, even though they exist for the simple purpose of moving faster in the early game, they add a lot of depth beyond the original intention of their implementation by simply fulfilling this simple purpose, because boats can be used not just for going across water, but also for canceling fall damage and trapping entities reliably. So even though boats are a small addition relative to everything else in the game, they add impact because they're easily obtainable and have a clear use case, which gives them that desired visibility. With that in mind, I think this is a good way to judge the impact of a Minecraft update. Its changes have to be visible. An update doesn't need to have huge changes, like an entire new structure, overhaul, or dimension, but it does need to have something that makes the player notice that things have changed. And if those changes can affect gameplay naturally, it makes them all the more better, since people can remember and associate such changes with ideas about how an update brought something new and interesting that changes the game as a whole. So, now that we have an idea of what makes an update good, let's look at how Minecraft's updates have progressed up until Microsoft's acquisition of Minecraft. And as a disclaimer, analyzing this part of development is not intended to fit any simple rhetoric like Minecraft was better when Notch developed it, because there was also major involvement from other developers such as Jeb during that period. Instead, I want to set an idea of what development typically looked like before Minecraft was bought out by Microsoft, because there were different limitations and factors which led to completely different philosophies surrounding game development for Minecraft. So with that in mind, let's start this timeline by taking a look at what development was like by starting from Minecraft's alpha up until Microsoft acquired it. Looking at Minecraft's alpha, new features were added frequently throughout this development period, with some of the most notable features coming out through Notch's Secret Friday updates, which came out consecutively for about 10 weeks. In these Secret Friday updates, Notch would include various additions of varying visibility, such as minecarts, rails, dungeons, winter, and chickens, just to name a few. And these additions, although simple, each added impact as they worked on top of Minecraft's base to introduce new ideas and strategies for playing the game through their visibility. On top of that, because there were no limitations on what the development philosophy should be like for Minecraft besides what the developers liked, these changes could be indiscriminately introduced, allowing for fast iterations and major changes within a small time period. And this worked greatly for Minecraft as it allowed many impactful and visible changes to be introduced at the liberty of developer interest, because without that, changes like pistons for experienced players or even infinite worlds for every player wouldn't have been introduced, and we wouldn't have the same sincere sandbox game that we have now. And following into Minecraft's beta, this philosophy continues in a more concrete manner, as the developers work to add larger features to tie everything in the game together into one linear and cohesive path, the end, which was very significant for the game as everything added previously worked together to make the progression away and towards the end very interesting. And because the game had all this substance no matter what path you decided to take, Minecraft at this point was ready for its first 1.0 release, taking us into the period of 8 major updates up until Microsoft ended up acquiring Minecraft. Looking at these 8 major updates, every one of them added things of various impact and visibility, and while some updates were smaller or added things that had less impact than usual to the game, most updates added changes that made playing the game noticeably different each time. And although a few of these updates that came before Microsoft's acquisition didn't impact Minecraft as much as others had before, they still added depth to the game by adding changes that could be remembered and then applied throughout any player's gameplay in Minecraft. So with these standards in mind, in the beginning of Microsoft's acquisition of Minecraft, things still seemed to follow Mojang's traditional development patterns. Of course, some changes like the major combat overhaul were controversial, but big changes like the rework of the end were very much well praised and added a lot of depth to everything else surrounding Minecraft. As such, it's surprising to see what the next 3 updates after 1.9 were like, since the changes they added started to become much less significant. And it's understandable that a major update can be smaller to focus on bug fixes or give time for developers to recollect for a future update, but when you consider that there are smaller updates like 1.6, which did add significant changes like rideable horses, these updates that are supposed to be deemed major don't really seem to live up to the expectations they set. Even today, additions like the polar bear from 1.10 haven't really changed from their introduction, and their addition today ultimately seems shallow compared to the rest of the content that continues to be introduced into Minecraft. However, even though many of the changes that these updates introduced were shy of elements like impact or visibility, they did end up being built upon as Mojang recollected themselves for the next big update, 1.13. In this update, oceans and interactions with water were completely overhauled, making swimming and exploration across water much more quick and bountiful. And in total, this update was really great just for how it tackled and built upon the friction that water previously had in Minecraft. Following this success, the updates 1.14 and 1.16 also built upon previous areas of Minecraft in similar ways, overhauling how villages and the Nether worked as well. And as previously mentioned, it's fine to introduce smaller updates that focus on fixing bugs and whatnot, like 1.15. But heading into the next major update, things start to become rocky, as Mojang announces that they're going to not only overhaul mountains, but caves as well. And while Mojang likely tackled these parts of the game in their continual interest to improve older systems within Minecraft, it was completely understandable to see why they decided to later split the update into 2 parts, which was fine, as they intended to start by introducing the groundwork for these changes through Deep Slate generation closer to Bedrock in 1.17, and then the rest of the major update like new cave and mountain generation and the Deep Dark in 1.18. However, the cracks in the scope of their ambitions relative to the core philosophies of what made updates impactful started to show as the team split this update further, making the decision to have new cave and mountain generation come in 1.18, and the Deep Dark and Warden come in 1.19. And while this wasn't a bad decision inherently, Mojang also decided to provide concepts for further additions like overhauling the birch forests in addition to the 1.19 update. So when they later announced that they cut down on some of these additions, and we ended up seeing that the visibility of certain additions like the Deep Dark were more restricted, it ended up putting the 1.19 update closer to the shallow additions from 1.10 to 1.12. And this was especially problematic for the changes that the 1.19 update was intending to introduce, as all the work that had been put into the update was restricted to sparse distribution underground, with the Deep Dark cities being even more sparse, as they relied on height conditions in addition to the support of the Deep Dark biome in order to be generated. As such, even though the changes the update brought could have been impactful, the choice of its low visibility hurt the presentation of the Deep Dark biome and what it added as a whole. Also, the idea to truncate the intent of the concept art under the large expectations Mojang gave to the community hurt their reputation, as they promised too much under the bar that they had been meeting earlier, which as shown ended up being too much at this point. And because of that, the next update after 1.19 ended up reducing its scope, which would have been a step in the right direction if not for the fact that the changes it introduced were also pretty shallow as well, as they were almost all of low visibility. Which now brings us to the most recent Minecraft update, 1.21, where surprisingly, things seem to be taking a turn in the right direction again in terms of impact. Because although some parts of this update are somewhat occluded in their distribution, smaller but impactful changes have also been given attention again, impacting the game through something as simple as a new fuel source that you can collect off the ground while exploring forests. And with the plans to shift Minecraft towards a smaller, drop-oriented update style with more useful and impactful changes like happy guests, I'm excited to see how Mojang will move forward with more impactful and visible changes in Minecraft. So, from what we've seen with how Minecraft updates have progressed over time, it's safe to say that to make a Minecraft update impactful, it needs visible changes that add depth to the game. And even though Mojang has made updates with impacts of lesser visibility and such, it's clear that they found a better pace to work at going forward, assuming that they fulfill the expectations they've set with the concept of drop updates. As such, even though the philosophy surrounding game development at Mojang pre-Microsoft acquisition have been slowly dissipating away, leaving unfamiliar and uncertain signatures on the development of the game as it goes forward, Mojang has found a stable way to work on Minecraft. And even though things aren't the same, they do look really good going forward, and I'm confident that Minecraft is going to get even better from here.